In my younger years, I invested all my fortune, intelligence, and patience into building the facade of a perfect family, only to watch it ultimately shatter into a million pieces. On a stormy night, right after I stepped over the threshold of my own home, having just finalized a massive corporate negotiation that was supposed to save my husband's company, my mother-in-law grabbed me by the hair and dragged me across the floor. Moments later, the man I loved deeply lunged at me and struck me with his fist, leaving my face covered in bruises. They threw me out on the street, calling me a gold digger and a tramp, but they were making a colossal mistake. They had no idea that the $10 million estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, where they were currently standing, as well as the company they supposedly ran, were my exclusive property. It took just one phone call for that entire family to stare into the abyss. They were stripped of everything they considered theirs, and forced to discover what it's like to sleep in the freezing rain in a pedestrian tunnel under Penn Station. Today, I'll tell you how I taught a brutal lesson in reality to those ruthless, heartless parasites. Thunder rumbled, tearing through the night sky over the tri-state area. My Cadillac Escalade pushed through the flooded streets toward the exclusive gated communities of Greenwich. The clock on the dashboard read exactly midnight. I had just survived 10 hours of grueling negotiations with a group of French investors. My throat was dry, and my body was utterly exhausted, but deep down, a genuine spark of joy burned within me. A contract worth tens of millions of dollars had been signed. Hudson Development, my husband Maurice's construction company, was officially saved from bankruptcy, a crisis caused entirely by his disastrous management over the past year. I kept telling myself that the next day, when Maurice heard the news, he would be ecstatic. My mother-in-law, Patricia, who had recently been constantly complaining about a lack of money, might finally stop her endless whining. The vehicle pulled up to the imposing wrought iron gates of the estate. This house was a wedding gift from my parents, registered solely in my name thanks to an ironclad prenup and a strict separate property clause. However, to protect my husband's fragile ego, I never mentioned it or bragged about it. I let Maurice boast to his relatives that he built this whole empire with his own bare hands. I unlocked the front door with my fingerprint and stepped inside. It was pitch black. Only the soft, warm, ambient lighting in the living room cast a dim glow over the interior. I bent down to take off my heels, but before I could straighten up, I heard hurried footsteps coming down the wide oak staircase. "You have the nerve to show up in this house at this hour? Do you think this is some cheap motel you can waltz into at midnight like a woman off the streets?" I flinched and looked up. Patricia stood before me, eyes bulging, hands on her hips. Her loungewear reeked of the sharp, distinct scent of Bengay muscle rub. "Patricia, I just finished negotiating with the French investors. The urban development project is signed. The company is saved, I assure you. I'm exhausted. Please, let me go upstairs and rest." "A contract? Fool whoever you want, but not me. The company belongs to my son. He is the CEO, and he's been asleep since 10 p.m. You are just a kept woman who shuffles useless papers around. Who were you supposedly negotiating with? You went out whoring with some loser, and now you're using work as an excuse to drag my son's good name through the mud. Patricia, you are seriously insulting me. You know better than anyone how I've lived in this house for the last 5 years. I will not let you tarnish my reputation. You little brat, you dare talk back to me? You think because you have a pretty face, you can walk all over this family? I'll teach you how a good wife should behave." Before she even finished her sentence, Patricia lunged at me. Her bony hand gripped my perfectly styled hair with savage force. The jerk was so sudden and violent that I lost my balance and fell face first onto the cold marble floor. My knees slammed against the stone, and an unbearable pain shot through my head. "Let go! Are you crazy?" "Yes, I'm crazy. Crazy enough to teach you not to come home at midnight. Enough to make you stop acting so arrogant in front of your mother-in-law. Hand over your credit cards and the safe code right now. I manage the finances in this house. You have no right to keep a single dime." I desperately tried to pry her fingers, which were tangled in my hair like iron pincers. The humiliation burned in my throat. She didn't care at all about my safety or exhaustion. The only thing she cared about, the only thing keeping her awake until midnight, was money. That money is mine. It's the fruit of my hard work and sacrifices. You have no right to demand it. Let me go immediately. Just as the struggle reached its peak, the lights on the stairs flicked on. Maurice ran downstairs. He was wearing the Italian silk pajamas I had bought him just last month. I looked up with tear-filled eyes at the man I shared my life with. I expected him to intervene. I expected him to reach out and pull me away from this degradation. "What the hell are you doing, Florence?" I didn't get a chance to answer. Maurice lunged forward, but by no means to pull his mother away. He raised his fist and brutally punched me in the face. Everything went black. A full-force blow from a grown, furious man landed right on my right cheekbone and eye socket. A deafening ringing exploded in my ear. I was thrown backward, crashing into the leg of the glass coffee table. The metallic taste of blood filled the corners of my mouth. "Teach her a lesson, son," Patricia shrieked. "She's a treacherous snake hiding money behind my back. She dared to talk back to me. She has zero respect for this house." "You think you're so smart, Florence?" Maurice roared. "I've put up with you for too long. You think just because you make a few bucks and have some connections, you can lecture me in my own company? You think I don't know you secretly send money to your parents upstate to renovate their house? Today, you are giving me access to all financial accounts and signing this house over to me. Or I swear to God, you'll crawl out of here on your knees." I lay on the marble floor. My chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Blood dripped from my lips, forming crimson drops on the pristine white tiles. The physical pain of my swollen cheek and torn scalp was nothing compared to the psychological breakdown I was experiencing. I looked at the two people towering over me. The mother-in-law, who, just yesterday, was sucking up to me so I'd buy her a designer handbag, now wore the expression of a starving beast. The husband, who, that very morning, had texted me calling me honey and begging me to save his firm, now looked at me with a cruelty and greed I couldn't comprehend. "You're still looking at me with that attitude? Get up and grab a pen. Let me make this absolutely clear. This house is mine. The company is mine. If you live under my roof, you follow my rules. Call your lawyer, Jeremy," Patricia added, her voice dripping with venom. "Have him bring the drafted deed and make her sign it. Ungrateful wretches like her only learn the hard way." I wiped the blood from my mouth with the back of my hand. Surprisingly, I didn't shed a single tear. I had no tears left. For 10 years, I had fought relentlessly in the world of corporate finance, managing massive capital flows. I had never surrendered to any competitor, yet I had been stupid enough to voluntarily lock myself in the iron cage of marriage. I had torn out my own claws to become a docile sheep in the eyes of his family. I slowly sat up and got to my feet. My whole body ached, but my back was straight as an arrow. I fixed my disheveled hair and the collar of my wrinkled blouse. My gaze swept past Patricia's triumphant smile and locked onto Maurice's furious face. "Are you done talking?" I asked. "You still dare talk back? Are you not scared?" Maurice yelled. "Scared?" I looked at him piercingly, an icy smile forming on my lips. "I don't feel fear. What I feel is disgust. You say this house is yours. You say the company is yours. Your memory is failing in a rather pathetic way. Maurice, don't listen to her. My son is the CEO. He is your husband and the head of this household. In a marriage, what is yours is his. Don't try to manipulate the facts," his mother squeaked. "Patricia, your knowledge of New York and Connecticut family law is as miserable as your human decency. Just because you receive mail here and list this address on your tax returns doesn't make you the owner. This property was acquired before the wedding. Every brick, every sofa you comfortably lounge on, was bought with my money. Way before I signed a marriage license with your son that included a rock-solid separate property clause. The title deeds are in my safe, under the name Florence Vance." "You're lying! I gave you $5,000 to help with the down payment." I burst into a dry laugh that made them both take a step back in the middle of the night. "Your pathetic $5,000 barely covered the installation of the smart home management system. Maurice, you've believed your own lies for too long. And as for the company, do you really think you hold the CEO position because of your talent? If I hadn't injected 70% of the capital from my own money 3 years ago to bail you out of your crypto disasters, you'd be hiding from debt collectors right now. You snake, you planned this from the start to trap my family. You're a fraud," Maurice began to stutter, his face turning pale. "I didn't defraud anyone. I gave you a life of luxury you would never have even dreamed of in your pathetic existence. You want to take my life's work and throw me out on the street? Perfect. In that case, I will show you how a real venomous snake bites when cornered." I calmly walked past them toward the console table in the hallway. I picked up my designer bag. Seeing this, Maurice lunged at me, trying to snatch it. Who do you think you are? Leave everything here. I forbid you from taking anything out of this house. I stepped back and looked him dead in the eye. Touch me one more time, and you'll see for yourself. The wound on my face, the clump of hair ripped out by your mother. Every second of this assault was recorded by the hidden security camera system. 4 of them are installed in this living room. You're a CEO, so think carefully. If this footage of domestic violence and attempted extortion lands on the DA's desk and the front page of the New York Post tomorrow morning, do you really believe you'll keep your precious job? She's lying. There are no cameras here. She's just trying to scare us, son. I pulled out my smartphone, unlocked the screen, and opened the smart home app. With one click, I played the video of what had happened just 5 minutes earlier. Patricia's insults and Maurice's brutal punch echoed with absolute clarity in the silence of the living room. Maurice turned ghost white and dropped his hands. Patricia stood frozen, jaw dropped, pointing a trembling finger at the phone. Did you really think a corporate finance executive would be stupid enough not to secure her own assets and life in her own home? Florence, I lost control because I was stressed. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Maurice stammered nervously. Shut up, I interrupted coldly. As of this moment, negotiations are over. You love this house so much? Keep it. Enjoy your last night sleeping on Egyptian cotton sheets, because tomorrow, I will show you what it's like to fall straight from heaven into hell. I turned my back on them and walked out the front door with a confident, calculated stride. The thunder was still roaring, and the freezing rain lashed against my face. But a fire unquenchable by any storm burned inside me. I got into my Escalade and sat behind the wheel, the taste of blood mixed with the salty rainwater. I reached for my phone and dialed a number. After the 3rd ring, someone answered. Jeremy, I need a favor. Tomorrow, exactly at 8 a.m., activate the full asset protection protocol and freeze all operating accounts for Hudson Development. Hire the best private security firm you have and get a court-ordered eviction notice. We have some trash to take out of my house. The vehicle plunged into the dark Connecticut night. The rain battered the windshield as if trying to wash away all the bitterness I had just experienced. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. Swollen cheek, black eye, torn strands of hair resting on my shoulders. I had fought my way up from a regular analyst to chief financial officer. I had never let anyone step on me, yet the man I chose as my husband repaid my sacrifices with a punch to the face. I didn't cry. Tears of weakness vanished the moment I crossed the threshold of that estate. This type of human garbage didn't deserve a single tear from me. My destination wasn't my parents' house in upstate New York. I didn't want to worry them by showing up in such a pathetic state. My destination was the private ER at Lenox Hill in Manhattan. I needed a detailed and indisputable medical report. It was going to be the deadliest legal weapon to bring my abuser to justice. In the ER, the attending physician looked at me with deep sympathy. With absolute coldness, I requested x-rays, full documentation, and a written confirmation clearly stating that my injuries were the direct result of physical assault and domestic violence. As soon as the report was in my hands, I tucked it into my purse like a talisman. Suddenly, my phone started vibrating persistently. It was Maurice. I let it ring 3 times before answering, immediately hitting the call record button. Florence, where are you? Are you crazy? Driving in the middle of this storm? What happened earlier was just a normal domestic dispute. Don't exaggerate. Married couples fight sometimes. Besides, I'm under a lot of pressure. You're my wife. You need to be understanding and patient. Come back immediately. Mom is very upset. You call a punch to the face and being dragged across the floor by your mother a normal domestic dispute? Maurice, do you honestly believe I'm idiot enough to fall for such cheap psychological manipulation? Don't be insolent. I've already humiliated myself by calling to ask you to come back. Don't forget who you married. If your parents find out you get into brawls with your mother-in-law and run away in the middle of the night, they'll die of shame in front of their neighbors. So you better come back and apologize to my mother. Give me the phone. Why are you still talking to her? Let me talk to that brat. Patricia's shrill voice cut in from the background. Florence, listen to me carefully. If you step 1 foot off this property, you're never coming back. You think because you have a little money you can buy this house? I've already called all our friends from the country club. Tomorrow, All of high society will know what a principled, disrespectful snake of a daughter-in-law you are, daring to raise a hand to her mother-in-law. I'll make sure you can never show your face in this town again. Call whoever you want, Patricia. Slander me all you like, but make sure you tell them in detail how you and your son tried to steal my assets first. We'll see what a judge and the district attorney think of your version of events. You're threatening me with the police? You think we're scared of you? Call them. I'll say you fell down the stairs. We'll see who believes you. Where are your witnesses? I don't need witnesses. The hidden camera system with audio in the living room will be my best witness. Enjoy your arrogance while you still can. I hung up coldly, taking away their chance to spit more venom. Sitting in the hospital parking lot, I opened my laptop and connected to the Wi-Fi. I immediately sent the security footage and the medical report to my lawyer, Jeremy. For years, he had been my personal legal counsel, a brilliant, ruthless, and incredibly effective attorney. I typed a short message. Instructions confirmed. Implement Plan B. Withdraw all operating capital from Hudson Development. Draft divorce papers, file a domestic violence complaint with the DA, and press charges for attempted extortion. Hudson Development, where Maurice was listed as CEO, was in reality just an empty shell. 3 years earlier, when he was drowning in debt due to disastrous crypto investments, I was the one who injected the capital necessary to fix the accounts and took over 70% of the shares. I let him keep the CEO title solely to save what was left of his dignity. But that illusory title would be the first thing I stripped from him. Without my funds, without my signature as the majority shareholder, the company would be completely paralyzed. Suppliers would demand payment, banks would initiate foreclosures, and Maurice would finally learn the price of his insatiable greed and total incompetence. I started the engine and disappeared into the dark night, leaving behind a thoroughly rotten marriage. The next day, I didn't go to the office. I booked the presidential suite at the plaza to turn it into my sanctuary and the command center for my war. My face was still swollen, but my mind had never been clearer or colder. The first thing I did was contact one of the most prestigious private investigation agencies in New York. I simply didn't believe that my husband's and mother-in-law's sudden aggression and greed stemmed from a standard domestic conflict. There had to be an ulterior motive, a dark secret behind their desperate rush to force me to sign over the estate in the middle of the night. Just 3 days later, a thick file from the PI agency lay on the desk in my hotel room. What I found inside not only disgusted me but made me burst into bitter laughter at my own blindness over all these years. My husband Maurice, the man who always preached about morality, family, and values, had been keeping a mistress for over a year. The girl's name was Mallory. She worked as a receptionist for one of our subcontractors. And the most repulsive part? Mallory was 4 months pregnant. She was going to give the family the son Maurice had always wanted. My mother-in-law, who constantly degraded me, calling me a barren and useless wife, had known perfectly well about the mistress and her future grandson for months. Moreover, she regularly accompanied the girl to secret ultrasound appointments. She bought her maternity clothes and gifts using the monthly allowance I personally gave her for pocket money. The file also contained photos of Maurice and his mother visiting a luxury penthouse on Central Park South. The money for reserving that property came directly from Hudson Development's reserve fund, the very reserves I had protected by sacrificing my own health. They had concocted the perfect plan. Force me to sign over the estate, steal my entire personal fortune, and then throw me out on the street with nothing, so they could comfortably install the mistress and the future heir in my own home. I leaned back on the luxurious sofa, savoring a glass of excellent French Chateauneuf du Pape. The pain of betrayal felt completely anesthetized. It had been replaced by the purest, absolute contempt. I opened the smart security app on my phone. The network of hidden cameras and microphones I had installed in the Greenwich estate transmitted everything in real time. They had no idea their every move was under my control. "Maurice, what the hell are you doing?" I heard Patricia's voice. "If you were going to hit her, you should have done it right, forced her to sign, and then let her go. Now she's vanished for days. Her phone is off, and Mallory is pressuring me. She says she wants to move in right now to rest during her pregnancy. Her belly is growing. Are you going to keep my grandson hidden like some outcast? Find Florence and bring her back. Mom, you think my nerves aren't shot? The bank hasn't stopped calling me since morning. Material suppliers showed up at the office demanding payment. The company accounts are suddenly frozen. I can't withdraw a single dollar. I bet everything that Florence shut off the tap. If I push her too hard and she goes to the cops, I'll end up in jail. You're an idiot, son. She's just a woman. She's crazy about you. You just need to tone it down, say a few sweet words, and she'll soften up. Call her and say I was rushed to the hospital in critical condition so she comes back. As soon as she crosses the threshold, I'll make her chamomile tea with honey and sleeping pills. When she drinks it and gets dizzy, you grab her hand, put the pen in it, and force her to sign the property transfer. My notary friend agreed to backdate and stamp it for the right commission. Once the document is signed, there's no turning back. And what will she do after? She'll sue us. It's too risky, Mom. What if she figures it out? What are you afraid of? I'll cover for you. Worst case scenario, I'll call her parents in the Catskills. I'll start screaming that she's an adulteress. Her parents are respected high school teachers. If they see their daughter painted as a cheap tramp, I bet you anything they won't even dare defend her. She has to sign at all costs. This estate and the company must belong to you and my grandson. We will not let that barren cow keep our money. Listening to every venomous and ruthless word flowing from the mouth of the woman I called mother and the man I considered family was almost comical. They despised the law, ignored the consequences, and above all, vastly underestimated Florence Vance. Sleeping pills? Blackmailing my parents? They really saw me as a defenseless lamb heading to the slaughter. Very well. Since they wanted to put on a theatrical play about family love to set a trap for me, I'd gladly participate. I would walk right into their trap and turn it into their own grave. In this high-stakes poker game, I was about to lay all my cards on the table. 4 days after the storm, I decided to return to the estate in Greenwich. I purposely chose a gray, loose, and shapeless dress. I wore very minimal makeup, darkening the bags under my eyes with powder to look like a woman exhausted, weak, and utterly destroyed by a marital crisis. As soon as I pushed open the heavy oak doors, I saw Maurice sitting on the couch with an expression of suffering so fake it was blinding. Upon seeing me, he jumped up and ran toward me with a face so hypocritical it made me sick to my stomach. "Florence! Honey! You're back! Where have you been? Mom and I looked everywhere for you these past few days. I called hundreds of times. Please, forgive me. I had a little to drink that night. The pressure at work overwhelmed me and I lost control. I beg you to forgive me. Hit me, curse at me, do whatever you want, but don't leave me." I took a step back, avoiding the touch of his hands. I lowered my gaze and forced my voice to tremble, perfectly playing the role of the wounded, dependent wife. "Do you really still care about me? I thought you and your mother wanted to kill me to keep this house. I was staying at a friend's. I was going to file for divorce, but when I thought about our 5 years of marriage, I didn't have the courage. Thank God, look who's come home." Patricia emerged from the kitchen, holding a fruit tray and flashing a smile so fake it sent shivers down my spine. She walked over, grabbed my hands, and started stroking them, playing the role of the understanding mother-in-law. That day was entirely my fault. I have a terrible temper, and I was being stupid. Maurice knows he made a mistake, too. He hasn't eaten or slept out of guilt. Marital problems should be solved at home. Honey, I promise I will never raise my voice at you again. You must be exhausted. Sit down. I'll make you some fresh chamomile tea with honey so you can get your strength back. Chamomile tea with honey. Exactly what I had heard through the wiretaps. They intended to use sedatives to force my signature. I nodded, pretending their sweet words had melted my resolve. Yes, Patricia, please. I feel dizzy. Maurice, could you go upstairs and get my pajamas? I want to take a bath. Taking advantage of Maurice walking upstairs and Patricia bustling in the kitchen preparing her poisonous brew, I quickly slipped into my husband's home office on the ground floor. With the speed and precision of a seasoned CFO, I plugged a military-grade encrypted flash drive into his computer. I knew his password by heart. In less than 3 minutes, the specialized program cloned all the data from his hard drive: internal financial reports, lists of fake contracts, forged invoices used to siphon money, text messages, and bank transfers to the mistress's account. I hid the flash drive in my bra and, taking the opportunity, installed a button-sized micro camera in the blind spot of the bookshelf, pointing directly at his desk. From this moment on, no suspicious transaction in this office would escape my notice. I walked out of the office and sat on the couch just as Patricia appeared with a mug. "Here you go. This is your tea, honey. Drink it to feel better, and then go upstairs and rest. I took the mug. I could feel the intense stares of Maurice and Patricia fixated on my hand with immense anticipation. I brought the rim to my lips. Suddenly, I frowned and pushed the cup away. Patricia, this drink is sweetened with artificial sweetener. It has a very bitter aftertaste. I've been on a strict diet lately, and it triggers my allergies. I'll leave it. If Maurice is thirsty, he can drink it himself. Excuse me, but I'm going to take a shower. Without giving them time to react, I placed the mug on the coffee table, grabbed my bag, and walked upstairs. Behind my back, I clearly heard Patricia grinding her teeth and Maurice letting out a deep sigh of frustration. Their plan to drug me and steal my signature had failed miserably, but that was just the warm-up. I locked myself in the master bedroom, opened my laptop, and transmitted all the stolen data directly to Jeremy's secure server. The real war of attrition was starting right now. Every single penny stolen to support the mistress would be paid back. Every dollar earned through my hard sweat would be returned, multiplying their suffering. They wanted this house? They wanted the company? I would give them a colossal mountain of debt, an empty corporate shell, and a one-way ticket to a federal penitentiary. I would let them tighten the nooses around their own necks. Let them keep playing. Let them keep pretending. Because on this stage, I wrote the script. That same night, locked in my room, I dove into the ocean of information extracted from Maurice's computer. The glare of the screen illuminated my cold face. Every amount, every invoice, every fake contract, it all stood before me like sharp razors tearing apart the facade of a marriage I had once tried to save. Maurice wasn't just a bad husband. He was an authentic parasite. He had been bleeding capital from Hudson Development, a company where I held 70% of the shares. Thanks to my background in finance, dismantling his entire web of fraud took me less than 2 hours. Maurice had set up 3 shell companies registered to old college buddies. All the building materials for major projects were purchased through these intermediaries. The prices were inflated by 30 to 50%. The massive difference never returned to the company. It was wired directly into the personal account of his pregnant receptionist. I clicked on a hidden folder. Dozens of photos of Maurice and Mallory traveling across Europe appeared on the screen. I also found the deed to the Central Park South penthouse registered to Mallory, receipts for Prada bags, Cartier jewelry, and all sorts of luxuries. In total, the money he had looted from the company in just 1 year exceeded a horrifying $5 million. God, this money was the fruit of my labor. Countless sleepless nights spent drafting reports for high-level meetings that gave me stomach ulcers, years of fighting for clients, and he had used it all with total impunity to build a love nest for his mistress. I reached for my phone and called Jeremy. He answered immediately, even though it was 3 a.m. Jeremy, all the evidence of embezzlement, the shell companies, and Maurice hiding assets is on your server. Analyze it thoroughly. First thing tomorrow, as the majority shareholder, I will file an injunction in federal court, citing a gross breach of fiduciary duty and actions detrimental to the corporation. I want all operating accounts for Hudson Development frozen solid. No one, especially not the CEO, will be able to withdraw a single cent. And Jeremy, contact the French investors immediately. Use the non-performance clause to legally transfer the project to my private LLC. Nothing will be left of Hudson Development but debt. I've received all the information, Florence, Jeremy replied with total professionalism. With this material, we can file a report with the district attorney's office for white-collar crimes, embezzlement, corporate sabotage, and massive fraud. The account freeze will take effect at the start of the business day. Their construction sites will halt due to a lack of liquidity. He will be completely cornered. Is that all? Draft a summons for a board meeting, demanding the CEO explain the financial black hole in the company. But don't send it yet. I want Maurice to feel the terror of watching his empire crumble into dust without understanding why. We are going to slowly tighten the rope around his neck. The next morning, I woke up early. I put on comfortable, simple clothes. I pretended to suffer from a terrible migraine. Maurice watched me out of the corner of his eye, trying to act caring and concerned. He had no idea that at the exact moment he was adjusting his silk tie to go play big-shot businessman, the freezing of his accounts was already fully official. I sat sipping black coffee, silently observing this entire farce. Maurice, Patricia spoke up, when you get to the office today, tell accounting to wire me $10,000. I'm going to buy that German massage chair. My back is killing me. Oh! And I want that VIP pass to the spa center too. All my friends have it, and if I don't, they'll laugh at me. Relax, Mom. I'll tell the head accountant to make the transfer right away. The company is booming thanks to the new project. It's going to rain money. Buy whatever you want. I slowly stirred my coffee and smirked to myself. Rain money? We'll see where they get water when the well completely dries up. Exactly at 10 a.m., the microphone installed in his office began transmitting a signal to my phone. What? What are you talking about? The accounts are frozen? Who gave that order? I am the CEO here. What kind of bank games are these? Through the camera, I saw Maurice, red with rage, slamming his fists on his desk. The head accountant stood before him, shaking with folders in her hands. Mr. CEO, the bank informed us that the freeze was implemented at the request of the majority shareholder holding 70% of the firm. They cited severe financial risk and halted all cash flows. This morning, 3 subcontractors showed up demanding payment for materials, and the workers on the sites are threatening to walk off. We have no funds to make payroll. We don't have a single dollar of available liquidity. We don't know what to do. Damn it! She set a trap for me. She wants to push me off a cliff. Call the legal department. I'll sue this bank and that bitch. Meanwhile, I continued to peacefully drink my chamomile tea back at the estate. Sue me on what grounds? I held the full legal authority. He was just an employee with a fancy title. The panic quickly shifted from corporate headquarters to the house. At noon, Maurice burst through the front door like a cornered animal. He was pale and drenched in sweat. Patricia happily ran to meet him. What happened, son? Did you transfer the money for the chair? The store is already calling me. Forget about the damn chair. The company is sinking. Florence pulled the financing and froze the accounts. I owe millions to suppliers and contractors, and I have nothing to pay them with. Tomorrow, the creditors are going to be at my throat. Good God! Patricia screamed. That woman is the devil incarnate. I told you to force her to sign that night. Now she knows everything, and she's attacking us. What do we do? Where will we get the money if the debt collectors show up? I don't know. The only way out is to force her to sign this estate over to me. With the deed, I can leverage it for a massive commercial mortgage and get liquidity at any cost. We have to rip those deeds from her hands. Otherwise, we'll end up sleeping under a bridge. From the balcony on the second floor, I heard this entire conspiracy perfectly. They had no way out. They wanted to take out a mortgage on my house to pay off the debts generated by the money Maurice blew on his mistress. Their audacity crossed all boundaries of human decency. I returned to my room, smiling broadly. The time had come to cast the final net. They wanted the house? They wanted a notarized signature? I would give them exactly what they wanted, but it would be their death warrant. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the estate became stifling. Maurice was glued to his phone, harassed by creditors. Patricia paced back and forth like a lioness in a cage. They completely changed their strategy. They shifted from violence to the most pathetic flattery imaginable. Coincidentally, that weekend marked Patricia's 60th birthday. In the past, I used to rent out 5-star restaurants to celebrate it with great pomp. This year, they decided to throw a lavish party at the Greenwich estate. I knew perfectly well this wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. A meticulously directed performance designed to use family pressure to force me into handing over my assets. On Saturday, the property was decorated with excessive extravagance. Patricia wore a red velvet dress and a string of fake pearls. Maurice's closest acquaintances, old frat brothers, investors, and members of Connecticut high society started arriving in droves. Everyone looked around in awe at the luxury of the estate. Naturally, they believed Maurice had paid for it, and that I was just a lucky gold digger. I can't praise my Maurice enough, Patricia announced loudly. He is a wonderful son. He wanted to host it here to unite the whole family. He earned this house through years of hard work. Florence is so lucky to have married him. You know how it is. Women just aren't made for big business. I slowly descended the grand staircase. I wore an elegant, black silk gown. I looked stunning, the complete opposite of the broken woman they expected to find. Upon seeing me, the conversations hushed. Maurice's godfather, a retired real estate mogul, cleared his throat before launching into one of his typical conservative lectures. Florence, you finally came down. A pompous venture capital investor, supposedly Maurice's mentor, raised a glass of bourbon. I heard Hudson is experiencing some liquidity issues. In our circle, power couples support each other. Maintaining a strict prenup while your husband's firm teeters doesn't project a good image to investors. You should put this estate into a trust and let Maurice use it as collateral for a loan. That's how real wealth is built. I smiled with terrifying calmness. I stepped closer, looking straight at the old man. Then I shifted my gaze to Maurice and Patricia, who were perfectly playing the victims. You are absolutely right. In a marriage, you must support each other through thick and thin. But do you know who actually paid for this house and for the company where Maurice brags about being CEO? Since we got married, he hasn't contributed a single paycheck to the household budget. I have been financially supporting this entire family. And now, when his irresponsible spending has led him to ruin, you all gather here to demand that I use my personal assets to cover his debts. Where is the logic in that? Don't slander my son, Patricia yelled, agitated. My son works his fingers to the bone from dawn till dusk, and you are a selfish tightwad. The whole family is witness to this. If you don't sign this house over to his name so he can pay his debts, you are out of here this instant. Florence, I'm begging you. Maurice put on a performance worthy of an Oscar. He fell to his knees, tears welling in his eyes. The creditors have my back against the wall. You just have to sign this deed so I can temporarily take out a mortgage on the house. When I collect the receivables from the construction projects, I'll get it all back. Save me, I beg you. The guests started whispering. They called me cold, unfeeling, an ice queen. Someone handed me a document prepared in advance for the disposal of assets. It only lacked my signature. They genuinely believed that the social pressure of the entire family would break me. They were very wrong. I opened my purse and pulled out a different document. It was riddled with legal clauses. I also pulled out a fountain pen and walked over to Maurice. I didn't look at him with anger. I looked at him with the same pity one feels for a fool. Very well. If you put it that way, for the sake of our bond, I will help you. This is a power of attorney drafted by my lawyers. By virtue of this document, I grant you absolute authority over the management and liquidation of Hudson Development's debts. Read it carefully, and then I will sign it. Maurice, blinded by greed and his absolute legal ignorance, only read the header. Absolute power of attorney and assumption of liabilities for Hudson Development. That was enough. He immediately shoved the pen into my hand. He didn't notice that the document never once mentioned my $10 million estate. This was a perfectly planned legal trap. The document explicitly stated that Maurice Vance personally, and with unlimited liability, assumed all debts, defaulted obligations, and loans of Hudson Development. Furthermore, it completely released the majority shareholder me from any liability and explicitly forbade the use of any of my personal assets as collateral. In other words, I had just legally dumped this entire mountain of toxic financial waste directly onto his shoulders, and he would never dig himself out of it. I signed with one fluid motion. As soon as I lifted the pen, Patricia snatched the document from my hands and clutched it to her chest as if it were the greatest treasure. She signed it. She actually signed it. Finally, this house belongs to my son, she screamed with joy. What a fool you are. Now that you've signed this, we have no use for you. Starting tomorrow, I'm throwing you out on the street. This house is for my family. Thank you, Florence, Maurice added with a cynical smile. But it's too late for us. I have another woman. A real woman who will give me the son you never could. Not a bitter, barren workaholic like you. Pack your things and get out. The entire family burst into laughter. They mocked me without a shred of embarrassment. Instead of getting angry, I burst into genuine laughter, the most sincere laugh I'd had in 5 years. Finally, I saw them exactly as they were. Clowns digging their own grave. Do you really think what you're holding is the deed to my house? Guard it well, Maurice. In a few days, you'll understand the true power of that paper. Happy birthday, Patricia. Consider this your farewell to high society. I turned on my heel and calmly went upstairs to pack a suitcase with my essentials. Downstairs, toasts and victorious laughter continued. They were intoxicated by their own fantasy, completely unaware that a financial and legal time bomb had just been activated. The next morning, the atmosphere in the estate had completely changed. Mother and son walked around with their heads held high. They no longer hid their arrogance. They were convinced they held my fate in their hands. I sat in the living room, drinking black coffee, and scrolling through the morning reports sent by Jeremy on my iPad. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Patricia ran to open it. A few minutes later, she returned, holding a young woman by the hand. It was Mallory, the mistress barely in her 20s. She wore a tight designer maternity dress that proudly accentuated her baby bump. She wore way too much makeup and looked around the opulent living room with impossible-to-hide greed. "You're carrying my grandson. You have to be careful how you walk," Patricia said with exaggerated affection. "Maurice, come down here immediately. Mallory is officially moving in with us." Maurice hurriedly came down the stairs. As soon as he saw her, his eyes lit up. He hugged her and rubbed her belly, completely ignoring me. "Mallory, honey, from today, this is your home. If you want to rearrange anything, just tell me, and I'll call the contractors." The mistress looked at me with arrogance. She crossed her arms and spoke in a high, provocative tone. "Hi, Florence. I'm sure you know perfectly well who I am. Maurice told me you've been completely barren for 5 years and couldn't even give him a son. A woman who can't have kids is useless. I'm carrying Maurice's son right here. You already signed the house over to him. What are you waiting for? Get out already so I can replace this couch. It makes me want to throw up thinking you sat on it." I slowly set my cup down on the table. The sound of porcelain hitting glass rang out like a gunshot. I stared at her rounded belly. A hysterical laugh almost escaped my lips. Maurice's son? She really had no idea, but I kept the truth to myself. I decided to let them continue to revel in this pathetic illusion. I raised a cold gaze to this brazen girl. "Your home? Your couch? You have a very active imagination. You think a bloated belly gives you the right to enter this family? Ask the man standing next to you who paid for the dress you're wearing using a corporate card." "Shut up! Mallory is giving me a grandson. She is the lady of this house now," Patricia roared. "The document you signed yesterday is safe in my vault. Tomorrow, Maurice is going to the bank to put everything in his name. You have absolutely nothing left. Gather your crap and get out before I call neighborhood security." Patricia grabbed my designer bag and unceremoniously threw it toward the front door. Maurice stood watching with a satisfied smirk. "Get out, Florence. Don't make me use force again. This house is too big for you anyway." I stood up. I was much taller than this insignificant mistress. I smoothed my dress, showing absolutely no emotion. I picked up my bag and looked at the 3 delusional idiots. "You're throwing me out? Very well, I'll go. But let me warn you. Don't you dare destroy or change a single piece of furniture in my house, because I will be back very soon, and I don't want to find my belongings contaminated by trash. Oh, and remember to take that document to the bank first thing in the morning. Don't miss your big chance. Stop threatening us and get the hell out." Mallory shrieked. I smiled icily and walked out through the massive oak doors. The morning sun illuminated the Greenwich street. Behind my back, the doors slammed shut. A moment later, I heard my mother-in-law laughing and fawning over the mistress. They thought they had won. They were ridiculously stupid. The next day, when Maurice presented that document to the financial institution, he would legally and voluntarily assume over $5 million in fraudulent debts and liability for embezzlement. I got into my SUV. Before driving off, I looked at my estate in the rearview mirror. I drove straight to Jeremy's law firm. Everything was ready. The legal team, the DA notifications, the evidence of domestic violence, and the eviction order. I'd give them 3 days to enjoy their fantasy of wealth before I utterly destroyed their disgusting world. Monday morning. From my desk in the hotel suite, I watched the footage from the hidden cameras. I saw Maurice putting on his best gray suit, spraying himself with expensive cologne, carefully tucking the document into his leather briefcase, and euphorically heading to the prestigious private banking branch in Midtown Manhattan. He was entirely convinced he was about to use my property as collateral for a massive commercial loan. Less than an hour later, my phone started vibrating. It was Maurice. I let it ring until his desperation reached its limit. Then I answered, turning on the speakerphone so Jeremy could hear too. "Florence, what the hell was that thing I signed? Why is the loan officer telling me this isn't a property deed, but that I just voluntarily signed a personal assumption of all debts and liabilities for Hudson Development? You tricked me." A soft laugh escaped my lips, echoing through the office. "You're the CEO of a construction firm and you sign documents without reading them?" The document is legally flawless. It clearly states that Mr. Maurice Vance unconditionally assumes all corporate debts to save the company from the consequences of his own disastrous management. You signed it voluntarily in front of your entire family. I'll sue you for fraud. That house is in my name as the head of the household. Suing me is your right, if you can afford a lawyer. And as for the house, being on a tax return doesn't make you the owner. The title deed is solely in the name of Florence Vance, covered by a prenuptial agreement with a strict, separate property clause. Did you really try to use a personal liability assumption document to fraudulently obtain a mortgage against someone else's luxury estate? You should thank the bank employee for not calling the cops on you for attempted financial fraud. I could hear Maurice's rapid breathing, but the final blow was yet to come. Hudson's financial system just generated an alert. All notices of asset seizure and demands for payment have just been sent to the creditors. My legal team already sent a copy of the document you signed to every single one of them. That means all investors have been officially informed that you are personally liable for the debts with your own assets. Florence, for the love of God, the collection agencies are calling me right now. They're saying if I don't provide collateral by tonight, they'll seize everything I have and send marshals to the job sites. Workers are blocking the headquarters. Unfreeze the accounts. I'll kick Mallory out of the house. I'll do whatever you ask. Too late. I'm an investor, not a charity. Full documentation regarding your embezzlement of over $5 million is already in the hands of the district attorney and the white-collar crime division. The creditors will come for you, and your signature is on the debt. Damn you! Damn you to hell! Patricia's voice suddenly cut in. It was obvious she had been listening to the call. If you ruin my son, I swear I'll kill myself. I forbid you from coming back here, and if you send thugs, I'll lay down in front of the door. Patricia, keep up your cheap theatrics. Debt collectors won't come to my estate because this morning a federal judge issued an asset protection order and a restraining order. Enjoy your last hours of being rich. I hung up. Jeremy looked at me with deep respect. Everything was set. The noose had completely tightened. Tuesday evening. The rain over New York had finally stopped. Through the camera, I witnessed a pathetic scene. Even though they knew they were ruined, they threw a luxurious dinner party in my living room. Top-tier imported wine. Maine lobster. Bought with the very last pennies available on their credit cards. Officially, they were celebrating Mallory moving in. It was 8 p.m. 10 heavily built security guards in black suits waited for me in the lobby, along with Jeremy. There were also 2 uniformed Greenwich police officers, all ready to execute a court-ordered eviction due to unlawful detainer and domestic violence. I wore a perfectly tailored black wool coat. My lips were painted a deep, authoritative red. I was no longer the suffering wife. Before we set out, I connected to the smart intercom system at the estate. I spoke into my phone, my voice echoing throughout the house. The cameras showed them all jumping in terror. Good evening, Patricia. Maurice, an uninvited guest. How is the lobster? Florence? What kind of witchcraft is this? Where are you? My mother-in-law squeaked. Turn that off, Florence. You'll upset Mallory, she's pregnant, Maurice begged. My voice cut through the air like an ice blade. That illegitimate child means absolutely nothing to me. Did you really think you could eat at my table and breathe the air in my house after you humiliated me? Patricia, you said I had no right to enter tonight. I'll show you who actually holds the keys. This house is mine. Come here if you dare. I'll smash your face in. Patricia screamed, looking at the ceiling. Has your son not explained to you yet that he's facing charges for massive embezzlement and that this house has always legally belonged to me? Enjoy that last bite, because starting tomorrow, you'll be eating prison slop and sleeping in a room full of roaches. We arrived. 3 black vans pulled up to the Greenwich estate. Using my phone, I opened the iron gates. The security guards pushed open the heavy oak doors. A gust of cold air rushed into the living room. I walked in, escorted by the police, my lawyer, and the private security team. They all started screaming and hid behind Maurice. What is the meaning of this, Florence? The police? My wife has gone crazy. Get them out of here. Maurice tried to play the hero. I didn't answer. Jeremy stepped forward and displayed the documents with official court seals. Here is the proof of exclusive ownership of this property. More importantly, this is effective immediately. Based on a medical report, the court has issued an eviction order due to domestic violence against Maurice Vance. It applies to him and anyone residing with him. Officers, please remove these individuals from the premises immediately. Patricia threw herself on the floor. She started pounding her fists on the marble, throwing an absurd, hysterical tantrum. "She's a fraud. She's my daughter-in-law. She's trying to rob me." "Patricia." I stepped closer. "The law doesn't recognize the title of mother-in-law on a property deed. Letting you live here was an act of generosity. And when you attacked me to move some tramp off the street in here, that generosity came to an end. Security. Pack all their clothes in black trash bags and leave them on the curb. If they refuse to leave, escort them out by force." The security guards immediately sprang into action. Maurice tried to throw a punch, but he was instantly subdued and handcuffed by a police officer. "I'll kill you, Florence." "Mr. Vance?" Jeremy intervened firmly. "Tomorrow morning, the district attorney will present you with charges for embezzling over $5 million. I advise you to cooperate. Otherwise, you'll also be facing charges for assaulting a police officer." Mallory stumbled in her heels and fell onto the lawn while being escorted off the property. The massive iron gates closed with a final slam. The three of them were left on the Connecticut sidewalk, surrounded by black trash bags. In the middle of the chilly night, I took a sip of wine. Revenge had never tasted so sweet. The next morning, the report from the private investigator detailed the night they spent in a cheap motel in the Bronx. However, the ultimate humiliation came when I listened to the audio recording. Mallory was abandoning the sinking ship. "Where are those millions you had, Maurice?" she screamed in that dingy room. "Because of you, I almost ended up on the street. I'm leaving. I only wanted your money, and now you're ruined and headed to prison." "You're pregnant with my grandson," Patricia wailed. "My grandson." Mallory burst into a cruel laugh. "Wake up, old lady." Maurice shoots blanks. He's completely sterile. I found his old medical records in Florence's private desk when I was packing my things. The idiot never bothered to read his own test results from 5 years ago. She kept them hidden all this time to protect his fragile ego, and accidentally left the key on the desk for me to find. She fooled us all. This baby belongs to a rich client I met when I was working at a nightclub. I only kept up this charade with Maurice because he acted like a millionaire and threw money around left and right. The sound of shattering objects, the agonizing screams of mother and son, it was all music to my ears. I always knew Maurice was sterile. I had kept that secret out of love for 5 years, and silently endured all the insults and humiliation from his mother. Poetic justice destroyed them completely from the inside out. 18 months later, in the federal court for the Southern District of New York, Maurice Vance was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for embezzlement, massive financial fraud, and corporate sabotage, with an order to pay millions in restitution. That same week, the court finalized our divorce, citing his exclusive fault, forever stripping him of any rights to my name and assets. As the guards handcuffed him to take him to his cell, he fell to his knees, crying and begging me for mercy. Meanwhile, his mother fainted in the back row of the courtroom. I walked out of the courthouse with a confident stride. I wore an immaculate, custom-tailored white suit. The warm sun illuminated my face. Finally, I was free. 3 years later, my firm became one of the most powerful on Wall Street. On a freezing December evening, I was traveling in the back seat of my Maybach. We were driving through Midtown Manhattan. Slowing down near the pedestrian tunnels around Penn Station, I spotted a group of homeless people gathered around a burning trash can, trying to stay warm. Among them was Patricia, wrapped in dirty rags, begging for spare change. Her son was rotting in a cell in federal prison. His mistress had vanished without a trace, and the rest of the family had completely abandoned them. Karma had executed its sentence to the very end. I didn't roll down the window. I didn't feel joy, and I didn't feel hatred. My heart was in complete peace. We women were born to love, protect, and build. But that love only makes sense when there is respect. Never let anyone use your sacrifices as a weapon against you. A financially independent woman is a woman who is incredibly difficult to destroy. Knowledge, preparation, and a cold mind in decisive moments are tools far more powerful than despair. If someone betrays you or tries to use you, don't waste energy on endless tears. Protect your rights, defend yourself with intelligence, and let the consequences of their own decisions do the rest.